Lady, sit. You're not making this easy. Say hi. Okay. Hey guys, it's Kyle from Regrettable Props. Today we're going to be making a Fallout cosplay Dogmeat. You guys will probably know and are well aware of what that is. First, you want to get measurements of your dog, and I'm going to be making the light armor variant. I measured out half of what I needed and traced it out onto a piece of paper, the rough idea of that template. I got two shapes, a left side and a right side. Obviously one side's going to be a left, the other side's going to be the right side. And you just trace it out to follow the image that you're going to be using. I went with a light armor variant since I just got this dog and I don't want to overwhelm her, and to make it easier for her to get out if needed, having little amount of foam or pieces being attached to her would be great. So I traced it out onto some 5mm craft foam, remembering to flip it for your side of the template. And once you have them cut out, we're going to be marking where we're going to be putting some nuts. There's going to be 4 spots on the smaller pieces, and there's going to be about 4 additional spots also on the larger templates. However, those nuts on the larger templates are going to be much bigger because we're going to be having some bolts coming out, and that's where the handle is going to be connected as well. Additionally, I marked out 3 holes where we're going to be having some pieces of thread or rope to connect these 2 pieces on each side together. Now moving on to make the fake nuts and bolts, we're going to be using once again 5mm craft foam. I cut out a rectangular strip and then cut out some small cubes, then cutting off the corners, making 5 and 6-sided bolts. This is up to you. It's going to be crude. It's Fallout. Those who have more experience in the Fallout universe or lore will know obviously how a post-apocalyptic and inconsistent and grudgy this can be. So obviously use your own discretion when making these. You may want to make them a little bit smaller or more nut looking in shape with the hexagons. You're going to be cutting out 4 of them and then putting them onto each piece of your Dogmeat cosplay. Then I use some 10mm craft foam using the strips where the puzzle pieces are, cutting off the texture side and having some long strips, and this is going to be our simulated bolts. To get some battle damage, we'll be using a Dremel and a grinding stone attachment. Rounding off the corners, you can go at it with whatever type of amount and battle damage you want to do, and I'm going to be using that cone bit of the grinding stone to press and get my 3 holes which are needed to connect the pieces from each half together, if that makes sense. If you don't, you'll see it shortly what I do in that process. So here it is for the battle damage. We're going to heat seal each of these foam pieces. I'm going to be using a heat gun. You guys can use a blowtorch or a toaster oven on broil setting. You can make sure if you want to burn and get that type of texture on the foam, make sure you're doing it in a well ventilated area. But we're doing this to seal the foam to make it easier to paint, as well as conforming and giving it a bit of shape to help wrap around my dog's body or your own dog's body or cat for whatever it may be. Once we've done that process, we'll be gluing on those nuts. You can add some additional pieces to these bolt and nut sections, adding like a circle in the middle of them out of 2mm foam, or scoring that area to make it seem like there's at least a bolt going through that nut or connecting to it. And then to connect the 2 larger pieces, I am using some 2mm craft foam. I cut out a strip that was probably about 2 inches wide, 2 strips of them, and they were about 5 to 6 inches in width. It allowed me to have a 2-inch gap between each halves. Here you guys can see it once had all connected together. Now I forgot to make the handle, so what I just made out a crude horseshoe shape using 10mm craft foam, tracing it onto another piece, and then afterwards using a Dremel to round and smooth and blend out the imperfections with the handle, however leaving it a bit rough because we're in a post-apocalyptic environment. So as I said, I cut out a horseshoe shape, traced it onto some 10mm foam, glued it together, cut off the excess to make it less work using my Dremel, and here you can see what it looks like after that's been done and connected to the rest of the armor pieces. Here we are before painting, and what we're going to do now is seal the foam. I personally like to use Modge Podge mixed with black paint. The black paint helps saves me to having to do an additional step after the Modge Podge to help give a nice base layer. However, the Modge Podge does seal the foam, which makes it a good base sealer and primer, I guess, for all our additional layers afterwards. And I consistently mix in the black paint because I work with a lot of metals colors on my cosplays, so that black helps the metal stand out more. So we do a dark metal base and dry brush some highlights of lighter silver on afterwards. You guys can do a wide range of process on washes and making this look grungy and rusted, but we're going to actually add some additional rust to make this look rusted afterwards. But here you can see once we've done the dry brushing, this is what it's going to look like. I forgot to mention the 2mm craft foam strips that are connecting the larger pieces of the left and right sides is going to be painted using brown paint the top and bottom, and all the paints that have been used within this tutorial process are going to be acrylics. Now moving on to the actual rust process. I've done this previously in the Lawbringer and Apollyon videos, but in this video we're going to be using some PLA glue and actual... My dog's in the video of the shot, I'm just seeing this now. We're going to be using some white glue or wood glue, and I have a jar of actual rust that I've had metal that's been rusting away into it to such a point that it's a fine rust powder that I can just drop on some of that rust powder onto the areas with the glue and let it dry there, and apply this to everywhere that you want to be rusty. This has come from a post-apocalyptic event where there's nuclear warfare that's happened, and obviously Fallout people, there's no, there's gonna be a ton of battle damage and rust. So apply it in the areas where rust would normally accumulate around the nuts and bolts and just metal, or areas where there's battle damage, or you could just simply coat the whole thing in rust. It's up to you. Afterwards, since rust can come off pretty easily, even though you do have it go on those areas where there's PLA glue, I cover the thing in 2 coats of Rust-oleum Ultra clear gloss to help give it a shine, as well as protecting that rust. Once it's fully dried, I moved on to securing this cloth fabric around the handle, which is accurate to the reference image, and I used some hot glue to tack it down in areas to keep it from falling off and moving around too much. I weathered it up using some blacks and browns and rust colors to age it a bit more, since it does not quite fit the level of wear that the rest of this material and cosplay build has so far. Now, for some reason my video file or recording didn't happen for how I connected the smaller pieces to the larger pieces, but I just used some twine. You can use some rope, and I hot glued it, wrapping around a couple times to get it to be connected. Now, to have this to be able to hold on to my dog, I'm going to be using some large 1-inch wide, roughly 3/4 of an inch wide brown strips of cotton fabric. I have that connected on one side, and then I have a plastic piece of plastic where the cotton or fabric can go through to attach, so it can be held there either by Velcro, or you just have it go through that loop and tie it to secure that excess around the dog. And I just use some hot glue to attach these fabric pieces onto the craft foam. The green foam that you see is additional 2mm craft foam used to cover up where I had the twine going through. That way it wouldn't stick into my dog. And here you guys can see the final product of what it looks like after it's been weathered, sealed, painted, and everything. I just have that extra fabric to secure around my dog. That way it's easier for it to come off for her if she's feeling uncomfortable with it. There is no templates for this video since every dog is going to be slightly different. I based the template size to be about halfway down the rib cage and about 3/4 along the torso section between the front and back legs, if you're able to understand that. Anyways, this has been Kyle from Regrettable Props. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hit subscribe if you want to see more cosplay tutorials. Hit like if you enjoyed the video, dislike if you did not. Materials will be listed within the description. I hope you guys have a good day. Bye.